Hey guys, Mike Noel here. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and that means we're going to waste another perfectly good hour talking about all things blockchain. And it has been a extremely exciting week in the world of blockchain. It's been an extremely exciting week with me coming off of Crypto Block Con in downtown Los Angeles last week. Awesome time. Awesome people talking about doing exciting things in blockchain, and certainly some forward thinkers there. And I continue to follow up with them and working with additional projects. Lots of different events coming up, and I have a very special guest today, Bryan Feinberg of Etheralabs. This guy has his fingers in almost every pie that there is. It's going to be very interesting to chat with him and learn more about what he's doing and why he's doing it. Real quickly, this week in blockchain, a couple of things are happening. CoinDesk says blockchain is going mainstream, says European Commission official. So lots of things are happening offshore from the United States that we don't necessarily see. In a speech Tuesday, European Commission Vice President went so far as to highlight distributed ledger tech, calling it one of the areas where Europe is best positioned to play a leading role. So lots of people becoming more involved in this thing we call blockchain, moving away from cryptos and moving away from speculation, this kind of stuff, which is kind of what we talk about here today at Blockchain Weekly. Lots of things that we have talked about that are beginning to happen. In February, the Commission launched the EU Blockchain Observatory and Forum in partnership with the Ethereum startup Consensus, and said that it would invest $300 million in blockchain-related projects. This is coming from the EU. Big stuff. Things that are happening today, things that are happening right now, things that are happening in blockchain. YouTube and Facebook are losing creators to blockchain-powered rivals. So there's people that have been doing stuff on YouTube that are moving to some of the consensus-driven creation places where, like DTube is one, and you can post your videos and charge people to view the videos, and all that's handled through the blockchain, and it's taking care of a lot of the monetization for people that create content. And I don't know, maybe that's something we'll look at in the future. I don't know. Right now, you can go to YouTube, type in Blockchain Weekly, and our channel is right there. CNBC, this is CNBC. Bear market in cryptocurrencies may mean more focus on blockchain. Good stuff, yeah. So several large cap cryptocurrencies have declined in 2018, no surprise there, but the underlying blockchain technology may offer risk reward, says Brian Kelly. Last year it was all about, hey guys, this guy's building the new Facebook. I think this year it's going to be about building the new Cisco's. So this is kind of what we've been talking all along here at Blockchain Weekly, that there's a bigger overarching benefit to cryptology, cryptos, and that lies in blockchain, that lies in distributed ledger technology, and things that do things 1,000 times quicker and 100 times less expensive. So CNBC is beginning to catch up with this, guys. So we need to start running quickly. Interesting article in Bloomberg. Yes, these chickens are on the blockchain. Yes, you should Google this. Yes, these chickens are on the blockchain. And it's talking about food safety and some of the stuff they're doing. And they actually there's a company called Carrefour SA, a France-based grocery chain that has a blockchain that tracks the bird's life, what he's doing, so you can actually understand what your chicken did in its lifetime before it hit your dinner plate. Blockchain is kind of an interesting thing, and we're able to do that. But moving on and talking about different things in agriculture, because I'm working on a couple of things with agriculture. Swift Harvest is a company that I'm working with doing a blockchain implementation. But Coin Central, blockchain agriculture will change farming and food. And it is, and we're able to keep track of stuff that we were never able to keep track of before. We're taking IoT devices, putting them out in the field. We're monitoring stuff that's happening in the field and being able to predict what the produce and what the fruits are and what the products are going to be that produced by those kinds of things. And we're doing procurement tracking. We're doing product origins and supply chains. Budbo is another company that's doing that for the MMJ industry, decentralizing the power of multinational and efficient and equalizing the pricing. So all this stuff is coming to bear. It's all working and it's all out there right now. And the demand, this from Forbes. Forbes is a big company. We're not really used to seeing breaking news from Forbes, but the demand for blockchain engineers is skyrocketing, but blockchain itself is redefining how they're employed. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Decentralized environments. Blockchain lives in a decentralized environment. How do we work? How we have engineers build decentralized environments while they're working in a centralized environment. Interesting stuff that's going on. Wonderful time to be in blockchain. And we're going to get one of the thought leaders and one of the guys who's doing a whole heck of a lot for us here in blockchain. And I kind of sped through my regular Wednesday morning intro and what's going on, so we could get right to Bryan, because very interesting gentleman, and he's doing a lot of things. Mike, why don't we get Bryan up on the stage? Bryan.
Michael, what's happening?
You are.
Thank
you
you
are
very
happening.
much.
Oh,
Thank
my
you very
pleasure.
much.
My pleasure.
This always happens when we talk anyway. It's the chicken and the egg theory.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for the warm intro. I'm really happy to be here. And, every time we have an opportunity to kind of pop our head out and talk to people, it's about kind of looking at things through other people's lenses at times to try to really kind of understand, exactly what kind of momentum is being generated in this place and the innovation that's really driving it. So I'm really, really psyched to be here today. As you said, a lot of things going on in our world, and I'm not here really to talk about science and math, even though I would like to. I wanted to, kind of dive right into the culture of blockchain right now, because I think it's a very I would say, misunderstood aspect of the way that the institutional world, as well as enterprise now, is starting to decode, I would say, all the fine work from all the engineers and innovators throughout our community. So really happy to be here.
Awesome, and it's an honor to have you. And let's without further ado, I'm sure that it's going to be the top of the hour before we know it. So let's jump in, and let's back up a little bit. Let's learn a little bit about you, why you're in blockchain, and then let's talk about a couple of the people that are in, like Ben and some of the other guys that you've helped out, and then we'll move on to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, like a lot of people in this space, I kind of bumped into it. In 2014, I was tracking venture capital deployments of some of the world's most influential investors, like Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and Tim Draper. And this blockchain thing kept coming up over and over again. So as the first wave of, I would say, definable venture capital was deployed into the industry, I mapped out the industry in late 2014 and identified the first 86 or so companies that were the recipient of $1.3 billion. And like a lot of people, I was curious not only in kind of what was driving those investments, but I had a different view of the industry at that time. I watched sectors start to develop. And as I started to understand what a white paper was and what smart contracts were, the industry just kind of took off from there. Turned my head for a couple of quarters, and by third quarter of 2015, the industry was, we had mapped out over 1,400 companies in the space. And again, as much as we were a student, I think, of what was going on, it took a little while before I decided to go in full force. I think, like all of us, we were kind of watching and waiting to see where the adoption was going to start to take place as these wonderful companies were coming to market. So prior to that, I've spent I would say almost my entire life as a recovering entrepreneur. I'm a securities banker by license, not necessarily by philosophy. I think we're creating, the framework right now for the investment bank of the future that uses not only data and innovation to be able to kind of drive successful transactions, but bring those companies to marketplace in an efficient and compliant way.
Absolutely, with without so much of the middleman. Although yeah, you and I both were middlemen. I mean, I spent tons and tons of time in private equity and made a lot of money, but it's as it turns out, it's just not the most efficient way to do it, and there's a lot better things we could be doing, right?
Well, I think you see the way that your traditional bulge bracket investment banks right now are really running for cover. The IPO market is down. The lack of innovation, I think, across the companies that are going into the public sphere have found a new route to not only capitalize themselves, but in a way to kind of accelerate the innovations that they bring to market.
Right.
This is very much a community-driven phenomenon that has gone on that is at the core of, I think, some of the most successful companies out there. So, we're going deep into the genome sequence now. After looking at hundreds and hundreds of companies in the space, and not necessarily as a predictive element, because I think, like all of us, we're watching the tape every day, trying to gather as much information as we can to kind of think on how we want to position ourselves today.
Right.
Tomorrow may be completely different than today, which I think what makes this industry and this community so exciting. It's just we're seeing great things.
Yeah, I think my guess is this is not going to play out the way that most people think it's going to play out.
No, and because I've sat in from many different vantage points around the industry. We think at times that we have our finger on the pulse, but in reality, we don't. There is still a lot of X factors that are going on right now that are not necessarily calculated all the time, and we have to kind of look at data in a way to kind of drive our focus and drive our thought process.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of what's going on today is centralized organizations trying to centralize a decentralized mechanism.
Yeah.
And I
And
don't think that.
these are traditional businesses that have been that are so ripe for not only disruption, but the way kind of innovation can accelerate into those supply chains and into those enterprises.
Yeah, yeah. I've often sat around and said, okay, we need to come up with a word that's different than disruption, because this is not disruption. This is this is forklifting entire industries and replacing it with something that's 100 times quicker and 1,000 times quicker and 100 times less expensive. That's disruption.
The big news, you brought out the chicken blockchain today. We had kitties last month that were clogging up, the Ethereum network, and the next thing we're going to do is, blockchain Kobe beef, I think. But
Kobe beef, yes, there you go. Or don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but how about organic vegetables, fruits and vegetables, things of this nature, right?
certainly work, and certainly the magic plant. So, as the cannabis industry kind of crosses over into not only the banking side of blockchain, but really in terms of the pharmaceutical side and the way that drugs are being developed today. I think the possibilities are endless across those large data environments.
Budbo is working on a quasi FDA time trial, or a trial, right, for medical marijuana. This is very counter and very aggressive, but I think it's something that needs to be done. Medical marijuana, and I'm not going to sit on marijuana, but medical marijuana is a Schedule 1 drug. Therefore, there's no medicinal value. I think all cumulatively we know that there are some medicinal value for people that are suffering from post-traumatic syndrome, from cancer, and from chronic diseases and things of this nature. But there's no tests that have been done. and Budbo's taking up the armor and going to market with a blockchain that tracks the product from seed to the store and then to the end user, trying to correlate some of that information so that we can come to some conclusions. And my hat's off to them and what they're doing. Lots of things happening in IoT directly to the blockchain. Lots of really interesting stuff going on in agriculture. And traditionally we think agriculture is kind of a snoozy little nap time when they talk about agriculture as far as the technologist is concerned, because there's not much more technology you can add to a John Deere tractor. But when you start thinking about IoT devices in the field and collecting data in real time and then making forecasts based on that data, it changes the world really quickly.
Yep, and as much as these systems need data to live, right? Us as people, as humans, the way we consume that data comes in many, many different forms. There is some common threads there that I think are related to both security and privacy that are always hot topics when it comes down to, I would say, open ecosystems. And, we're very, very encouraged in what blockchain kind of brings to that equation. Talking about IoT, I wanted to thank you for having Pete from Augmate. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago up on the show. Companies doing wonderful things across that space in terms of, being able to kind of blockchain networks and, devices. We recently brought the company to PwC India. And just to show you how fast, things evolve, within 6 weeks, we've been able to formulate a pilot for Pepsi inside India, managing their vending machine network. So go Pepsi. You know what I'm saying? It's like I stopped drinking Coke when we signed the contracts on that. So sorry.
No Coke, Pepsi. Cheese boogie, Pepsi, right?
That's right. But we're really excited about that because when pilots can be worked out, obviously scale can then be determined, and we all are in kind of a testing mode on everything. We want to be able to get validation both on and we're confident, or at least the companies that we've had the opportunity to be able to get our hands dirty on really are doing wonderful things in this space and taking. I would say token frameworks and building all these new behaviors into it. And,
sure.
Flexibility there is also is spawning, almost a white label token right now that can be quickly put out into a blockchain or a fork. So, I think companies, the way that companies go to market right now is also going to be dramatically improved using blockchain to be able to kind of, continue to create proof of work.
It's going to be interesting to look at the tokenomics that are coming down the pike, as far as how the token is used, what the value of the token is, how we set the value, how we allow access to data and data streams using the token and bring value there, and how do we incent the miners. I mean, this is all a big stack that we're still kind of taking the dart and throwing it against the board and hoping it hits. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't, obviously. But the tokenomics is really getting down to a much more workable and manageable point at this point than it was, say, 6-7 months ago when I was looking at spinning up tokens.
Yeah, definitely. And, again, we don't want to get too esoteric about tokens, right? We treat everything as a security, even though there might be a utilitarian function to it. So, being able to kind of open up, this, the investor landscape right now and have better efficiency, you will start to see, I would say, some of the rollouts now of some of the private security marketplaces that are being put on token, T0 and others that are, kind of coming out. And certainly Trevor and his group, these guys are doing wonderful things in this space to kind of like normalize what we think is the future of also security. So as we start to think about really what that stored value might mean in the form of a token, it enables we think, a lot more transparency regarding, I would say, company activities as well. So the reporting and the compliance side has yet to kind of catch up with the innovation that blockchain has. So there is a little bit of a dislocation there. But I think, in the coming months, we'll start to see some more regulatory language and some more regulatory guidance that will give us all a better blueprint and a framework on how we want to be able to conduct our businesses inside the space.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we, I'm going to step out on a limb here, but I think it's important that we actually start conversations with the SEC and with some of the regulatory bodies and start having conversations. And your attorney's going to say, no, don't. But I don't think that's, I think we should start communicating with them and saying, look, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. You look at Polynex, that's what Polynex did. Polynex went out and said, look, this is what we're doing. What do I need to do? And now they have, a good framework in place.
I'm actually looking forward to a call from the SEC. It'll hopefully give me an opportunity to be able to, say something that might resonate upon somebody about what we're trying to do, and being able to kind of guide companies along a compliance framework, first of all, right, and trying to understand where they fit in terms of kind of the securities landscape and how investors should be onboarded. There has been almost a blind eye to compliance, certainly during the first wave of ICOs, that saw a lot of changes in companies like Facebook and Twitter, Google, and so forth, kind of casting a shadow right now because they're unable to kind of filter out bad actors, for instance, right, that are looking to I would say disrupt the flow of investor capital. But more than that, I think that the SEC has taken a very, I would say, curious look at blockchain, right? They just, again, like any, almost any heavy government organization right now is, overburdened with the responsibilities of keeping orderly capital markets. And this blockchain thing kind of came out from, almost a fork of everything. And, right now, I think as much as the SEC has been kind of hands off, I think everybody's under scrutiny here. And, you have to build your own best of class standards. Getting back to, talking to the SEC, the first thing that we advise, clients after we've run our security audits in their environments is, you're taking money from the public. Treat yourself like a public company. Keep your books open and transparent to those token holders that have invested in your company. Create a reporting that allows your token to actually get inside the mechanics of your company, and your company will be looked at as a company as opposed to just a token sale. Because the exchange environment today, the way that tokens are traded, honestly, it's there are better places, better casinos to go to, to be able to kind of place your bet.
Did you say that out loud?
I do.
And I certainly agree with you that the speculation is a zero-sum game. And my opinion is, why play a zero-sum game when there are so many great gains to be had out there working in blockchain and working in rationalizing workflows and helping companies become more than they are today. I mean, that's really where we need to focus. And because of all the speculation that has happened, I mean, it's kind of casting a bad eye on some of the things that we're doing and the regulation.
If the end game is not getting onto an exchange, right? That shouldn't be the end game of an ICO. It's about building sustainable businesses and being able to kind of support the ecosystem and at the same time protect it. Because going back to your mining is a passion of ours, and sure, we're doing some pretty cool stuff on the data front, but also kind of understanding that the entire industry right now is under forced pressure. Related to the price of Bitcoin and the cost to be able to actually go out and mine that for the commercial miners. And, whether or not this is part of a prolonged suppression of price, there's no logical reason on why, Bitcoin should go down or go up at any given moment. The last couple months I've spent inside the institutional world in, not only accessing OTC capabilities across the block front, but really understanding right now kind of what drives the supply and the supply dynamics right now of the commercial miners that are so vital to this industry. It's not only about the data processing and the protection of everything, but it is really kind of our internet right now, right? This
Yep.
is our network, and it's up to everybody to be able to that is attached to it to be able to drive optimization not only for everybody but also in their own reward structure on how they are extracting that. So miners are an interesting bunch. There's a veil of secrecy across most of them, right? Having multiple discussions in the last couple of weeks with some very, very large outlets. They're very frustrated right now, right? It wasn't only the investments that they made 2 or 3 quarters to go to their S9s, but really how do they move the needle right now and being able to kind of keep their efficiency driving hard across their ROI landscape. So there's a number of foundations that are out there with trustees that are essentially managing, some of the largest consolidated blocks of Bitcoin out there. So those crosswinds that hit this market all the time, I would say little black swans, that have usually just I would say a minimal effect on the price dynamics right now until this, I would say the mechanisms behind compliance as well as, enterprise adoption, which we know is coming on very, very fast this year. It's about kind of normalizing our relationship with crypto and at the same time kind of having crypto normalize its relationship with us. How do we create this seamless environment where it's not just about not trusting the big banks or the oil companies or the pharma companies out there. It's about kind of teaching them a little bit something that they don't know about how to be able to extract more value out of the systems the companies that they run. So it's interesting day.
It's all about the tokenomics there and making it work for everyone that's involved. And miners, we can't do it without the miners. That's our network. That's our database. That's our data center. That's everything in a nutshell. But you've made some good points about some of the cryptos and looking at blockchain and the internet of value and being able to exchange value with Bitcoin from one place to the next is certainly something that's interesting and of value. But as Ethereum begins to develop and some of the smart contracts that are involved in the Ethereum database and the ERC20 tokenization begins to move forward and become more robust, and we have companies that are actually coming out and doing interesting things and valuable things, that I think that's going to move the needle there, quite frankly.
Quite a bit, but even the concept of an ICO is somewhat tainted right now. Okay, simply because I would say the second generation of ICOs that came out in 2017, I appreciate more right now on why those companies were trying to get to market as quickly as possible before I would say the headwinds were going to kind of make it not necessarily more difficult, but a little bit more complex to make sure that you not only are doing things the right way, but that you figure out how to market your company the right way, because ICOs today, I think the best ones, and there's a common denominator amongst all of them, right? That we can see at times, so that
utility and functionality.
That's correct. And if we think about impact, right, everything is about innovation right now and leadership. So, the fact is that we have, 150 coins that came to market in the first quarter, or 121 or so for this quarter. The volume of transactions across the blockchain is growing, right? Even though pricing may be suppressed right now. This next wave of companies that are going to come out are going to face more challenges in terms of being able to create attention and awareness. So, the new norm on a token sale. It wasn't what it was 6 months ago or 7 months ago. So, even those valuations there, to a traditional investment banking analyst, they would laugh at them, right? But and they did. But in all reality, those companies now are sitting on a well capitalized structure, to be able to kind of go out and attempt to deliver the promises that they did in their white paper and through their businesses.
And hopefully there's a bunch of them that will be able to perform and deliver, because that will raise the ocean and all boats will rise. Definitely, definitely. Can't wait for that to happen. Can't wait to have more.
There is congestion right now across several of the networks, and those challenges are being addressed. But when I look at the Ethereum registry, it just continues to grow. It continues to grow. It's almost a de facto kind of token right now for smart contract implementation. And as those companies now, we have to be able to disseminate between companies that are on the register right now, certainly from an early stage perspective, where do those companies fit in the supply chain right now? This has very, very much been a kind of a leadership game right now. If you're able to come to market with something that nobody else is doing, that can resonate with the community, that can have the impact, and can also, I would say, help the system and system health, you have a really good shot at being able to kind of plug away at crossing every single channel that the blockchain community hits, no matter where it is demographically. We're not, this is not about an endless roadshow to be able to kind of go out and raise capital anymore. You have to find your own path, and you have to chart your own course.
Absolutely, absolutely, and very profound comments. I'm sure we'll look back on this this interview on YouTube a year from now, and we're going to have some times when we went, yeah, we hit it right on the board, and we're going to have times where we're going to laugh and chuckle at ourselves. But I think that's
hopefully it won't be a memorial for me, but it's okay.
What is it? Brilliant minds think alike, and everyone says, yeah. And then you say, well, fools never differ. So that which end of the coin we're on will tell. That's for sure. I think we're in a very exciting industry, a very exciting niche, and things are definitely moving forward. And let's enjoy or invite the SEC into the fold so that we can have some conversations with them, let them know that this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do, and we're not trying to game the system. We're trying to actually move forward and build decentralized environments that work much more effectively and function better than some of their centralized companies that are in existence today. So let's kind of move on a little bit. We're really I'd just love to sit down and chew the fat with you, but let's talk a little bit about your company and what you're doing, and maybe some of the companies you have in the accelerator and what's going on. Let's do a little bit of shameless plugging, and let's talk a little bit about the future there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I've been using the concept of a venture accelerator since 2008. And being able to kind of have a somewhat decentralized environment for being able to spot innovation and kind of help those companies not only in raising capital, but really trying to bring their product to market. And I was very fortunate through those early years in kind of being semi-autonomous, that I've survived after 10 years now of being able to kind of spot innovation before I would say other people did, and get involved early. So when we set Etheralabs up 14 months ago, really we had that concept of venture acceleration. We knew that a lot of companies were coming up with good products, but really didn't understand kind of the capital markets at all, and they were just kind of jumping into a token thing. So we started to advise companies. And I'm very, very proud of really some of the successes that our companies have achieved over that time period. It's not just about putting another tombstone on a website, related to a deal. It's about these companies having impact, not only to the people that they touch, but, as well as the companies themselves. So we started off in an advisory capacity. We started to advise some companies. The first company that I advised, Blockchain Intelligence Group. Okay, so here's the beginning of the plugs now. So Blockchain Intelligence Group was, or is, I should say, built an analytic around tracking dark web shipments. And they were able to kind of create a FICO score through triangulating data from the proximity of some of the dark web shipments for Homeland Security and for, Treasury and so forth like that. As I was trying to influence the company into doing a token sale at the beginning of 2017, when I saw the amount of capital that was being rushed, 3 months earlier, I could not raise, I mean, I raised a little money, but I couldn't raise money on a $6 million pre-money valuation on this company. I knew they had built a formidable product, but the market just was not ready there. Happy to say that the company was listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange 4 months ago. So as opposed to doing a token route, they went to the traditional public markets. It was very, very well received, and the company did very well. Well, the valuation, so it went off, and again, excuse me if my numbers aren't right, because they are a Canadian company, and I don't know even what the conversion is between the Canadian dollar and the U.S. dollar.
But Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a little bit too much triangulation for my dyslexia, but beyond that, it went public at a $60 million valuation. Oh, excuse me, they did a private at 60 million. They were oversubscribed at 23. Okay, so they raised 23 on 60. They went off at about 100, and they came back down to earth. But they came back down to earth is, yeah, they're an early stage company too. They're trying to build their revenue pipelines also. The institutional community that piled into that deal, just didn't understand token. They heard blockchain and they wanted to invest in it. And good for the company now. They have a public platform, to be able to kind of go drive better efficiency and better compliance around banking environments, which is, again, part of this normalization factor. So those guys are on their way. It was very satisfying working in their user interface environment and trying to help kind of create the product that they put out into the market. And then really the first company that we did under Etheralabs is a company called Shopin, and Iran Eyal runs that company. And I was the first one there at the door as the company actually decided to be a blockchain company. And as we were going through those early conversations about, what token are we going to use and what is the behavior of it, this week they just announced that they've done $40 million in their pre-sale, getting ready for token sale. And, again, when you can do that in a pre-sale mode, it almost defines success right now and how the token is going off. So that does have the potential for being one of the bigger ones this year when that comes to market. I have the list of companies here and I'm looking at all of them, and I can't believe we did all of these. But, this was because of the team that, that gravitated to what we were doing, that were part of this thing. Even in our decentralized world, working at home endlessly for months and being able to kind of build the right infrastructure to be able to kind of create this support. It's all about the people on our team and the companies themselves. We kind of look at our business almost as a megaphone for them, and being able to kind of put their math and science up front. And, we've, gotten pretty good at some traditional media outlets and normalizing things. So our company has moved in a couple different directions. We have our own development team building a product called Plato, which, at its core is a very interesting hashtagging engine to be able to hashtag content, and a very interesting mining schema that allows, we think, the next major search engine to hit the marketplace, I would say take a run at the big G. But, we don't plan on doing that in any kind of threatening way. But, to us, it is about kind of democratizing access to content and data, and a very, very innovative way of being able to, monetize that through our token schema. So, that is our passion project. Again, we had to go through a number of developers to kind of get with the core, take our core team to the next level. And, when you create these open ecosystems for people to plug into, it's just very, very gratifying when things work, and very educational when they don't. So, again, we have a great company called Tokenomics on our team also. We're building our own compliance framework to be able to kind of do token sales ourselves, under SEC registration. We're negotiating to acquire a broker dealer right now, and kind of, be, I hopefully, a pillar of sanity in this somewhat insane world. But
please keep me in the loop on that one. I mean, when you have a crack in the door, I want in on that one, and I'll bring a couple of companies.
You're in. I'll send you the safe agreement after the phone call.
Perfect.
Excellent. And, the concept of raising capital in this really is at the core in helping companies position themselves to be able to kind of accelerate their capital raising. So, taking a multi-month approach and being able to kind of not only build the story and build momentum into the investor pockets out there. There's no shortage of investors. Okay, that's one thing, right? We start to see now things from a demographic light in a much different way, right? Europe is much easier to do business in. Okay, there is a little bit more of a free flow, opportunity. So, even U.S.-based companies that are trying to raise from U.S. investors, they get kind of bogged down sometimes in, the complexity of having to worry about SEC compliance, even though that compliance has to be applied no matter where we are. So the framework there has to be no matter where we are in the world. But, so we're putting companies now on road shows through Europe. Priatech, our company is going to Moscow this week, and then Switzerland, and then Monaco. We have an interesting partnership going on with CNBC and with John Najarian from CNBC. We've been filming companies there for a couple of weeks now, a couple months actually. Not only does that kind of create, a content piece to be able to get inside the CEO's head, but it's helping also drive the narrative across, a wider audience that's being distributed through Class CNBC in Europe. We're assisting in a pilot right now, kind of like a Satoshi's Roundtable, squaring Wall Street off against blockchain, thought leaders, which again, it's about demystifying things across the financial markets and trying to normalize, I would say open discussions and debate on this stuff. But our client roster is continuing to grow with best of class companies and best of class, innovation across the space. And, we're very happy that, we can be making an impact and contributing also to the community.
We had Pete Wassel of Augmate on, and I believe that he somehow was associated with you. And how's Augmate doing, and how's that going?
Augmate's doing very well. We had them up on the NASDAQ last week, so we did a content piece with John over there, and it was a great up to the minute kind of discussion. They've been on a fairly busy travel schedule for the last couple months, which has been hard to nail them down, for face-to-face meetings. But we are helping the company both on the biz dev side, kind of with the relationships that we brought them for PwC. The company has raised $14 million already. So, they're going into a token sale right now in probably late May. We're very excited about that. And, we kind of built a relationship with them that, I think can, last a long time on both sides. It's just, watching these, early stage companies kind of start to evolve into, the GEs of the world. It's very, very gratifying.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to Pete and see if we can get him on again soon, so that we can understand, how he's done it and what he's done and what he had to go through in order to get that. We also had Ben Way from Digits. I mean, that's incredible, Ben.
It's an amazing story. Really, not only Ben's life, I think, but the way that he approached it, and also kind of just to give you a little bit of calibration on our relationship. I met Ben only 3 months ago. Okay, it was during a phone call. Okay, it was during a phone call, and I met the rest of his team, Laura, as well. And I was basically given the framework for a skeletal API, right? As much as the narrative at the time was, okay, we want to be able to use an existing credit card to be able to kind of access our crypto accounts without triggering, a capital gains or a capital tax event there. So we put together really a killer advisory board. We brought in, I would say some great talent onto that side that helped kind of craft that narrative. We brought John Hargrave in from Media Shower, who we're partnered with in our Boston office right now, and trying to, I would say, become part of something very interesting there called Genesis Block. It's in conjunction with WeWork, so we're one of the first founding companies of that. They had to segregate us from the rest of the population there. It's obvious why, but it's a really cool initiative there. And then when we started to see the development evolve around this, 8 line of code, right? Because they simplified their API using existing payment rails. I don't think there was more than 16 lines of code that was kind of driving a transaction on that side. We knew we were onto something very special there. And as we started to build the narrative around the company, immediately we took that into a compliance environment, and are soon to be launched on SAF launch. So that offering will be there very, very shortly, and I'll keep you and your audience updated there. A very exciting company, and when you can see an end-to-end transaction, across their application, it's pretty amazing, right?
In 60 lines of code, yeah, that seems, I mean, mind blown.
Yeah. And now we get to work on the fun stuff, like really the smart contract of the underlying debt instrument for that, which again now kind of brings everything full circle there, and how that can be a very, very important company for this industry right now in terms of the way that we normalize our relationship with crypto. So we're working with a really cool company down in Texas called Nodehaven. They're building next generation ASICs right now at 7 nanometers, which we again, is part of the migration.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And they're getting ready for a sale, and we're advising them, so we're very excited. I told you I wear multiple hats over the course of the day. I think what got me really excited over the course of the last month is
I'm sorry. Did you say 7 nanometer? I mean,
yeah,
they're doing. Wow.
yeah. And
Okay.
again, this is the migration of processing technology right now, right? Smaller chips, lower nanometer, faster, better performance on that stuff. So now the competitive
Intel is still at 10, I think, right?
11, I think. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
we're moving down, and having spent 10 years in the semiconductor industry, understanding, I would say, the roadmap and the process technology that kind of what drives next gen systems. The mining world is going to go through also another major transition during the next 2 years. Not only are a lot of miners are going to not be able to compete, certainly from if they can't upgrade their equipment, they don't have the money to do it. The suppressed price right now is not making it easier. The perceived cost of mining a Bitcoin through a commercial operation is at $8,000, right? So companies like we spoke about Ice Rock before, and when Amir was on,
Yes.
when Amir was on also, companies that know how to be able to kind of optimize their operational costs will survive, this. But, I expect to see a lot of used equipment in the marketplace in the next year.
So, but you're talking about seven, yeah, yeah. But you're talking about 7 nanometer ASICs that are CPU, not GPU, not CPU
That's correct.
resistance. I mean, so you're not building CUDA cores, you're building the ASICs, and you're doing them on a very fine scale, and you've got a lot of the heat dispensation and things of this. Man, you get down to 7 nanometers, it's almost like you're getting down a molecular scale, and you're connecting one atom to the next almost.
Well, this is where the complexity starts to get in the process technology that builds semiconductors and wafers. It's not just getting to 7 nanometer; it's having the equipment to get to 7 nanometer, and then the market demand. This is, how semiconductor companies, can control their own destiny as well, and being able to kind of move in highly competitive, commodity-driven markets. And certainly, companies like Bitmain that have done very, very well through this, and being able to kind of deliver both residential and commercial grade equipment to the marketplace. Those guys are going to be under competitive threats, right? And being able to survive, new process technology that's gravitating, it's essentially using excess capacity at the fabs themselves, to be able to keep that industry alive, right?
Yeah.
So it's the semiconductor industry also is a main benefactor here, even though it's relatively small compared to the rest of the semiconductor world. Mining is I don't know, maybe $1 billion now or 700 million, somewhere in that area where the miners were born. We're still in very early nascent stages because the equipment to run the blockchain with its growth right now is going to, we already are seeing right now stress along those lines. And, if you can't make money at the current Bitcoin prices, it's only a matter of time before you either have to jump ship, right? Or refinance your operation to be able to get to that next process technology. Who else are we working with? Interesting. Loki, you may have heard about those guys. They had a very, very successful pre-sale. They've built a patent discovery tool, around their token scheme. It was really fun working with them. OpenPort, we worked with for a while. They are now have announced going public up on the TSX. So there's no shortage of I would say great companies, but this has been a very selective process on our side. We have worked in pro bono ways, to kind of help companies and aspiring entrepreneurs deliver their vision, and I think that's important, and it's part of our ethos right now, and trying to be able to encourage great ideas and not discourage bad ideas, but to encourage those guys to be able to kind of go out and rethink what they're doing, to build sustainability. There's been a lot of people that jumped on the blockchain and token bandwagon in the last year and says, okay, it's great, let's do a token sale right now. And I think those companies came, a new reality hit them in the face. I should say, again, this goes back to the cultural narrative right now and why we're here in the first place. And if you can't understand why we got here, you'll never understand where we're going. So, you have to kind of, do your homework.
Yeah, you have to get your arms around decentralization because that's at the foot of everything, and that means unraveling decades upon decades upon decades. And the companies that are being built today are definitely not, my father's or my grandfather's companies that were built in the 80s. I mean, they're completely different in the way they're run and the way they're operated. And I think that's totally appropriate. It's an extremely, extremely exciting time to be alive. The oldest curse known to man is a Chinese curse, and it says, "May you live in interesting times." So we're cursed, that's for sure. Because
it's also we're seeing a whole new generation of innovation that is going to last decades, if not centuries. That are building I would say the really the future infrastructure of everything, that we're attached to, and it's at sometimes I would say the complexity kind of overtakes the practicality. Right? We don't have to make things more complex. In fact, we have to kind of dumb them down in a way so that a 6-year-old can understand what we're doing. And, I'm just looking forward to the day that one of my kids come up to me and ask me, what's this blockchain thing? So I can really have, some quality time with them. No,
absolutely. No, you're not. It's true. I mean, we live in a world where you and I can sit and talk, and the people we go to church with, the people we live with, our family, and our kids all think we're kind of weird crackos that are off in the Netherlands.
I
Yeah,
never, I've always been a little bit left of center. You can ask, my wife of 17 years who's, tolerated me. And, certainly, the longest and, most important relationships that I have in the business, world have gone through decades of, I would say, change and, yet, there are core principles there that I think that, if you want to be relevant and you want to be, want to build a sustainable business, you have to kind of build your culture around that. And,
yep.
and I think companies today also have to kind of look at the cultural impact that they have and how they are communicating that, because I think it's very, very important to, highlight, the fact that, innovation right now and, this incredible math that's kind of driving everything, is really the only universal language there is outside of music. So, when you can marry both of those together, you have a symphony orchestra working for you.
There you go. There you go. And I couldn't think of a more eloquent and astute way to end another perfectly good hour that we have totally wasted talking about blockchain and all the things that were coming. It is the top of the hour, and that hour, as I predicted, went by so quickly.
Yep.
I could sit here and chat with you for another hour. I know I could. We had a couple of questions that came on board that we did not get to. And we'll try and get those questions answered later on down the road. But Bryan, what an interesting hour. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for helping us educate and bring blockchain to a community that's looking for it. Mike, you want to come up on stage and say a couple of things about this wonderful thing we call Shindig?
Hey guys, yeah, just a quick thanks for both of you for using the platform for this interview. It's funny, it really did go by quickly as I was watching and doing some work and all that. So sometimes you get a lot of questions. Hopefully, Bryan, we could have you on for another one at some point in the future. But yeah, thanks for everyone using the platform. If anyone in the audience is interested in using the platform, I'll put up my contact information here. A lot of features on here, obviously, that can be used to make these kind of things really interactive. Otherwise, thanks very much, guys, and look forward to Michael, the interview next week.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Hey, man. Thank you, man. What a wonderful time. Thank you for attending a Blockchain Weekly. Everyone that's in the audience and everyone that's going to view us on YouTube, go to YouTube, type in Blockchain Weekly. You'll see the channel there, and let's get things going forward. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, guys.